The Pod News Weekly Review uses chapters. The last word in podcasting news. This is the Pod News Weekly Review with James Cridland and Sam Sethi.
I'm James Cridland, the editor of Pod News.
And I'm Sam Sethi, the CEO of True Fans.
This week, AI is everywhere, and it emerges that there are more new podcasts from AI than from humans, as well as AI being used to copy famous podcasts. We look at what this means for the industry. This podcast is sponsored by Buzzsprout, with the tools, support and community to ensure you keep podcasting. Start podcasting, keep podcasting with buzzsprout.com. And yes, this is an AI-cloned voice from Wondercraft AI. However, the next voices you hear will be real.
From your daily newsletter, the Pod News Weekly Review.
James, I'm going to say something that you wrote this week.
Oh, yes.
That stopped me in my tracks. This week, there were more AI-generated podcasts published than human podcasts. Let that sink in.
Yes, exactly. Let that sink in. Not in an Elon Musk way either. Yeah, I was astonished when I saw that. More AI podcasts that are brand new shows than human podcasts. It's quite a time in the industry, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the next three stories that we're going to cover will show some of the problems that we're having and hopefully some of the solutions that I think the industry is putting in place. But let's start off with this one. Plagiarism is the act of using another person's words, ideas, or work without proper acknowledgement, passing them off as one's own. Competition is a fair fight, but plagiarism is pure theft.
Is that another Gandhi quote?
No, I don't think. No, that's Grok or Claude or whatever.
Oh, right. Okay. There we are.
Let's use AI to fight AI.
Yes.
That's what I say.
Yes, correct.
A new podcast studio called Light Not Studios is copying the names and designs, more importantly, of 75 successful history podcasts to confuse listeners and attract ad revenue. Tell me more, James.
Yeah, this was really interesting. So it's first spotted over the weekend by Dirk from the History of the Germans podcast. And he was wondering why his show was going down. He's using a piece of software called Pod SEO, and he was wondering why the shows were going down in terms of the numbers that he was seeing. And he was there thinking, oh, there's another show called History of the Germans. And it's got pretty well the same artwork. And it was pretty well identical in terms of how it looked, except it was called History of the Germans Podcast. So it wasn't called the same name because they'd added the word podcast on the end. And it was a daily show produced by AI. Of course, AI is very good at doing history shows because it's got all of that information in there. That information isn't going to change. So therefore, it's very good at producing 10-minute long history shows. And that was what was going on. Not just Dirk from the History of the Germans podcast, or rather I should say Dirk from the History of the Germans, but also a bunch of other shows as well. So I published on Monday, some of the artwork, which was very close but not identical for things like the Hardcore History podcast, or Vikings, or Real Narcos, or Darknet Diaries, Hidden Brain, which was changed to Hidden and Unseen Brain. Stuff You Missed in History Class, which was changed to Stuff You Didn't Learn in History Class, but with pretty well the same artwork, and so on and so forth. So it was very easy. If you were looking for a particular podcast, you will be duped into playing this particular one. And so, as Dirk was saying, if they stumble on this copy instead, they'll be confused and they'll listen to it and they'll think that it's rubbish and it's not worth listening to. And Dirk said to me over the phone, I rang him as he was driving to work, and he said, we're all struggling hard for the first listen. It's very annoying. And absolutely it is. So yes, I thought that was a fascinating thing, shall we say, about how some people are busy playing around with copying shows.
Now, the owner of this new studio, Light Not Studios, is Ibnal Jaif Farabi. Was he, when called out on this, was he repentant in any way, James?
No, He was not.
What did he say?
He ended up saying, "Fuck you lot, because you don't like competition. If your entire business model is being threatened by one person using AI agents, then you need to adapt, otherwise perish." Wow. Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, in trying to stay sort of semi-neutral before I lose my rag, is there anything we as an industry could or should be doing?
Well, now, so this is the difficult thing. So if you were to look at what Farabi was doing, what he was doing is he was not quite copying a show's title and not quite copying a show's artwork. So it would be very difficult unless you have an AI which is trained for all 4.7 million shows. It would be very difficult to end up going, oh, this is obviously a copy of X. Now, as soon as I saw Darknet Diaries and as soon as I saw Hardcore History, I instantly knew what was going on. But you can't expect everybody to have instantly spotted those. So I think it's quite difficult. And weirdly, this sort of thing isn't necessarily covered by copyright conversations because the audio was different, the image was different, the pictures were different, and the names were different slightly. So it's not necessarily covered by copyright. Some would say it's not covered by trademark, although others would say it is. So it's actually quite difficult for us as an industry to fight against. And I think that that's probably one of the things. I mean, it reminds me, if you remember Coming to America.
Yes.
And Coming to America has this wonderful bit where you end up taking a look at McDowell's restaurant. And this little clip happened.
Look, being a McDonald's people, got this little misunderstanding. See, they're McDonald's. I'm McDowell's. They got the golden arches. Mine is the golden arcs.
And so now there is a law against this, which is called passing off, and that is a law in the UK. It's a law in the US, and that is talking about misrepresenting goods and services, and this is something that obviously a law exists. But if you take a look at Spotify or Apple or any of those things, the only tools that they've got are for copyright infringement, which this arguably wasn't because the audio was different, or trademark stuff, which again, if I was a harried support engineer, I'd be saying, well, the artwork is similar, but it's not the same. And, so no, I don't necessarily agree with you. So it's a difficult one to fight against, I think.
Could we do anything else? I mean, there's no way to copyright any cover art, is there? I mean, is the cover art itself copyrightable? Is that
arguably, yes. The cover art is both copyrightable and automatically copyrighted. Right. So as soon as you've produced a piece of creative artwork, or as soon as you've produced a creative work, then you can. Then that is automatically copyrighted as soon as it goes into your feed. So yes, but it's slightly different, the artwork. That's the thing. They weren't using exactly the same artwork. They were using artwork which was a little bit different. So it's a really interesting one. It's obviously not ethical. It's obviously not the right thing. So from that point of view, that's kind of important to remember. But on the other side, it's quite difficult to work out how we can fight against this other than to be vigilant and watch for it, like Dirk ended up doing.
So it's more like the Mona Lindsay rather than the Mona Lisa, really, I guess, is the analogy.
Yes, absolutely.
Could or should hosting companies be able to do anything about this other than remove them?
The first thing that hosting companies should be doing is removing them. Now, that's easy for me to say, and there are legal problems with instantly taking them off. But I would argue that it's pretty obvious what's going on in this particular case. Having said that, a typical hosting company may not know of the Hardcore History podcast and may not therefore understand that this is a blatant copy of the artwork or a blatant near copy of the artwork and of the metadata, and that's sort of assuming that somebody working in support, particularly since this happened over a weekend, that's assuming that somebody in support understands enough about the entire industry to go, oh no, I can see what's going on here. And actually, for quite a lot of the particular shows, I didn't know that these were copies of other shows. I had to go searching for them. So it's difficult. It is very hard, I think.
How is this show making money then? So, okay, plagiarizing the cover art, putting in AI audio, none of that seems to be making money. So how did they make money?
No, so as with all of these types of things, they have jumped onto a podcast host that offers advertising and that pays you for that. So in this particular case, it was RSS.com. RSS, who I'm a advisor for, they have a platform called Paid. And essentially, as long as you have more than 10 downloads to your show, then they will turn this on for you. Now, I could be very disingenuous, and this wouldn't be fair in RSS.com's case, but I could say RSS keep 30% of the revenue here. So it's actually in their financial interest not to take this down as soon as possible and to keep it there for quite some time. My understanding in this particular case, and obviously I've been having conversations with Ben and Alberto, which I'm not going to talk about, but in this particular case, my understanding is that they turned off the ads pretty well instantly, but they didn't want to pull the show down for a little bit, until they'd actually checked everything, and I understand why they would end up saying that. But yeah, so I mean that's how they were making the money out of this, and how Inception Point AI, which we're going to get on to later, earns their money as well, and so on and so forth. So it's that programmatic advertising. It's a bit like Google AdSense. As long as you've got a show, then you can fill some ad slots and earn some cash. And if enough people end up tuning into your particular show, then you start earning quite a lot of cash out of that, which is exciting.
Now, I will say, and you will and wholeheartedly agree, Ben and Alberto are two of the nicest people in our industry. A friend of mine said what they should have done was turn off the ads, but keep the podcast on the platform and charge them for being hosted. So it would disincentivize that person to stay on the platform, and therefore they wouldn't have had to take the decision to remove them, because this person said, well, I'm not making any money, I'm going to remove my podcast from your platform, and they would have gone somewhere else maybe. That may be one way of doing it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I would argue that that's not good enough, because actually the harm is still happening to the original podcasters. That's the difficult thing. So there's the one side of the earning money, and all of these shows were being paid, to be hosted, because you can't get access to the ad thing for free. So all of these shows were already getting charged to be hosted. But even if you turn the ads off, it's still harming the real shows that have been set up, against these. So it's not enough just to turn off the money tap, because the traffic tap is still unaffected by that.
Is there anyone else doing this similar to what we're seeing here?
Is there anyone else? Yes. I mean, people are doing this all the time. I think this was particularly egregious because it happened over a weekend. It was obviously pushed at a load of different shows in one particular genre. But you only have to have a look into the depths of the podcast index and you will find, loads of copies of the Huberman Lab, loads of copies of Joe Rogan and so on and so forth. There's a ton of that going on. So, there's absolutely other things, other companies doing this. Yeah, there was another company that we reported on this week who was doing something similar, Dr. Nathan Parley, and he ended up producing a ton of interestingly named shows called The Rest is History Biographies, The Rest is History Stories, The Rest, is History of Leadership, The Rest, is history, all of them with very similar artwork, with the sort of the terracotta, artwork with two statue faces on there. And when you went to have a listen to them, well, it turned out that they weren't AI generated because they were full of stuff like this.
And he spent his career preparing for that fight. By 218 BC, Hannibal was commanding Carthaginian forces in Spain.
Good work. So Dr. Nathan Parley, who is clearly such a expert in the Carthaginians that he doesn't know how to pronounce the name, there he is doing any of that. And also, obviously, such an expert of being a podcaster that he doesn't know how to edit that out.
I'd love to know what his doctorate's in as well. Anyway.
Yes, I would love to know what his doctorate... We'll hear from another doctor in a minute, in fact.
Good.
So I think it is going to be difficult to fight against this unless we end up with a few things. So firstly, is there a content match like there is in YouTube where you can at least spot people uploading the same audio? Is that something that an enterprising company could run as a central resource that everybody could pay a little bit of money for? Probably the answer is yes. And so perhaps that's one thing, but that doesn't necessarily help you when it comes to these sorts of things. When you end up with something where the audio is different, but the names are very, very, very similar, but not exactly the same. And I think it's going to be, in terms of working out what we do about it, that's quite a difficult thing to fix, I think.
I'd like to paraphrase Farabi, or should I say plagiarize him. We need to adapt so companies like his perish. That's what I think we need to do. Anyway.
Yes.
So have you talked to any lawyers about this, to find out what the legal position is?
Yeah, so I've talked to a couple, actually. I've talked to Gordon Farmark and also to Lindsay Bowen. Both of them tell me that there is legal action that you can take over what Farabi was doing, and indeed over what Dr. Nathan Parley was doing as well, in terms of either copyright infringement, trademark infringement, or a violation of the Lanham Act's prohibition against passing off. Wow, we're going legal. So that is certainly one sort of side of it. The other side of it is if you are running a podcast hosting company or a podcast directory, which is publishing user uploaded material, then there is a really easy way for you to protect yourself. Most people have, but some people haven't. And that is make sure that you have a DMCA designated agent listed in the directory of the US Copyright Office. Now, I did this 2 years ago. I think it's $5 for 2 years. It's not the world's most expensive thing. But you need that in order to be able to claim protection of the DMCA's safe harbor. So if somebody posts something that is a clear violation of copyright, then you have protections under the DMCA safe harbor as long as you have a DMCA designated agent. And if you don't, then people can easily find that out, and then they can go after you. So if you
Guess he got one this week.
So if you are a podcast directory which is available in the United States, Sam Sethi, then make sure
Exactly.
Make sure that you are that you have a DMCA designated agent. There are companies that will do that for you, but you don't actually need to use a company to end up doing it for you. It's just as simple as going onto the US Copyright Office and paying $5, and then making sure that you go back again after, I think it's 24 months, and doing it again and all of that. The other thing, if you're a podcaster, it's always worth trademarking your podcast name. That will cost you about $800 if you're using a decent lawyer to do that. I'm sure that Gordon Farmart will do that for you for a relative bargain. But always worth trademarking your podcast name. I would recommend trademarking it in the US. I don't actually think it's particularly helpful to trademark it anywhere else, because everywhere that matters is based in the US, even Spotify for this kind of thing. So I think making sure that you have a trademark is an important thing, and knowing how to get it taken down. So in the next week or so, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be producing a page which actually makes a DMCA takedown notice, which is something you need to be careful of, because if you put that through and it's not entirely legal, then people can actually come after you. So just be careful of that one. But I will be making sure that is available and it's gone through all of the legals and everything else. So there's a bunch of stuff that we should be doing. None of that really fixes the main issue here, but at least it gives us a little bit more protection, which is a thing.
Now let's move on to another company that we have a love-hate relationship with, Inception Point AI. What have they been?
Oh, we've got a definite love relationship. It's an excellent thing, isn't it? No?
Well, let's not try and do them in totally.
Well, there are two different conversations. Just very aware that the CEO of Inception Point AI used to be a lawyer. There are two different stories here. One of the stories is that there are more AI-generated podcasts being made than real ones, as we mentioned right at the top of the show. And if you take a look at the Podcast Index, which has a new feeds report, which is brilliant,
well done,
really,
Dave
really
Jones.
good piece of work. Yeah, this is absolutely excellent. And as of now, if you just go to podcastindex.org, you click on stats and you follow the link, because it's a link that I put there, you will go directly to the new feeds report. And that shows you how many new shows have been added in the last 24 hours, how many of those are AI generated, how many of those are legitimate, and how many of those are spam, gambling, and all of that kind of a thing. Really, really useful thing. And certainly when I took a look at it earlier on in the week, very clearly more AI shows than there were real shows. For the last 24 hours, that's not the case, which is nice. Only 30% of shows are AI generated. And 54% of shows are probably absolutely fine. There are a bunch of SEO and spam things in there as well. So in terms of that is quite a thing. Now, if you want to take a look a little bit further, then the Podcast Index now also has a new API, which will allow you to go in and take a look at new podcast shows that have been marked as spam or phishing or low effort AI. And if you are running a podcast directory or something similar, then you can actually use that to end up finding more information about those particular shows as well. So that might help everybody keep spam out of their services, which is quite a good thing. So definitely worthwhile taking a look at the new feeds report. So that's one of the stories, and one of the particular companies who are producing this AI generated content. They don't like the phrase AI slop. So this AI generated content is a company called Inception Point AI.
How many podcasts did they add this week?
Well, this week isn't over. They added 325 new shows on Tuesday.
New shows, not episodes.
No.
Shows.
These are new shows.
Exactly.
So, on Wednesday they added 159 new shows. So they are adding hundreds of shows every single day, mostly about dogs. Apparently, over the last 24 hours, it was mostly about wellness. On Tuesday, I noticed, would you take wellness advice from an AI agent?
Yes, because I think, of course I would. No, I mean, I think there will be AI agents in the future which are well trained and that know what they're talking about, that will replace doctors. There are examples of that already. But no, would I take it from a podcast that was generated automatically with no checking on it? Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that.
Now, we should say that when we interviewed Janine Wright from Inception Point AI in 2025 for this very show, she did tell us that for health and wellness advice, someone is involved in listening and reviewing the content before it's released, which is good. That content it's either hosted by somebody called Julia Cartwright or somebody called Dr. Mara Lennox. I don't know about doctor, to be honest. But anyway, this is what Dr. Mara Lennox sounds like and how she introduces herself.
Before we dive in, I want you to know that I'm an AI host, which means I can engage with sensitive, deeply personal material without judgment, agenda, or projection. That's not a limitation. That's a feature.
It's a feature, apparently. There we are.
How can you call yourself a doctor? Again.
How can you call yourself a doctor if you're an AI voice? I know. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I literally do not know how to square that circle. The prefix doctor means something, but not in this particular case. Of course. And the stuff that they're talking about, just so that we've covered that off. Everything from mental health, gambling addiction, dealing with anger management, dealing with panic attacks, all sorts of things which I think a real human being should probably be giving you advice about, to be fair, as well as, codependency, vaccinations and vaccination advice. Julia Cartwright has produced 5 or 6 of these shows all about vaccinations and how to talk to your friends about vaccinations and everything else. And, and I did rather boringly fact check one of them. I went through and I fact checked every single thing, and every single thing was right. So, at the end of the day, however icky it feels, Julia Cartwright's show about vaccinations, there was one of them. It wasn't the one called vaccinations, it was called something else. The particular episode I listened to, that I fact checked all the way through, absolutely everything did actually check out. So, I don't know what to say about that either. So they've produced a bunch of this. They've also produced a bunch of Spanish language podcasts. They've got a bunch of biographies in English, including a Charlie Kirk one that they rushed out directly after the death of Charlie Kirk. They've now rushed out quite a lot of Spanish language stuff. I say rushed out because this is one of them that I listened to. They've since corrected this. This is a biography for the Argentine writer Julio Cortázar. I've probably pronounced that entirely wrongly. Sorry, David Marzal, for that. David Marzal for that. But anyway, this is a little clip of the middle of that show. Of course, the entire show all in Spanish, but see if you can spot where things fall apart a little bit.
I'm sorry, but there seems to be some confusion. The details available in your request are mentioning Julio Cortázar, the Argentine writer, but the instructions and show details provided are focused on Julio Cortázar Perez, a fictional character inspired by Selena Quintanilla. Can you confirm which subject we should continue focusing on?
right in the middle of a published podcast. I mean, I should point out that nowhere does the Spanish audio say that it's AI generated, something that Janine Wright said that she was doing when we spoke to her in August of last year, and something that Apple require. That was not done in this particular show anyway. The previous episode that I listened to ended with the words in English, "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that." So I think the people would know that it's AI. But my goodness, I mean, you know, that's a thing, isn't it?
Okay, so these are all hosted on Spreaker.
Yes, these particular Inception Point AI, hosted on Spreaker, monitored by PodTrack as well, yeah.
Right, and where's the monetization occurring? On Spreaker as well?
On Spreaker as well, yes. And so why would Spreaker want to turn around and say say no for this particular one? Because obviously they're making, if it's 30%, then they're making 30%. Yeah.
So going back to our conversation about RSS.com and them seeing the moral implication of what they were hosting and then deciding to turn off the ads and then remove the podcast, does Spreaker not see the same thing?
Well, so I think, and I ended up having a conversation about this on LinkedIn because Christina Rubino was asking me, how are people earning money from this? And so I was talking about the automatic ads. And I said, look, all that's happening here is that Spreaker or RSS.com are using a company which is selling, 100,000 podcast ad impressions to a listener in Virginia who we think may be female. Okay, that's all they're selling. They're not selling shows. They're selling impressions for a particular person, a particular type of person, so a listener in Virginia who might be female, to an advertiser, and an advertiser goes, great, thank you very much. And so that essentially means that if you get 2,000 listeners, then maybe you've made $5. If the tokens cost only $1 to make that episode, then you've made a profit already. There are 8,000 shows from Inception Point AI that are in the podcast indexes list, and that's the clean list from the podcast index, and maybe we'll get onto that in a minute. So, if there are 8,000 shows, let's assume just for now 8,000 episodes, then you've made $20,000 by having 2,000 listeners to those 8,000 shows, if you see what I mean. So you're making quite a lot of money in terms of this. And of course, if you use Apple Podcasts, it's automatically downloading 3 or 4 episodes for you. So it's not $20,000, it's $100,000. And actually, from the advertiser's point of view, it doesn't matter anyway. Because the first thing you hear is 2 ads back to back, then the podcast starts, and the listener only realizes that it's AI and it wasn't what they were looking for, potentially, after consuming the ads. So the advertiser is perfectly happy because the advertiser has got its impressions, the advertiser has got its plays, and so the advertiser is perfectly happy. So is the ad buyer, who is claiming whatever it is, 10%, 20%. So is the podcast hosting company, which is claiming 30%, and so on and so forth. So everybody gets rich out of this. That's the thing, and I don't really know. Where you end up, because the advertiser frankly won't care. Brand suitability. Well, this is fine. There's nothing wrong with this in terms of brand suitability. It's just a piece of low quality AI generated content, but that's not a crime. So yeah, I really don't know where to go. It's miserable, isn't it? It's really miserable.
Yeah, well, as I've said before, Jason Calacanis did this with blogs, and then Google changed the algorithm that took Jason's business out of the market. But he was going to Google Trends and auto-generating blog posts for SEO and advertising reasons, and throwing thousands and thousands of blogs out like that. And this is what we're seeing with Inception Point AI. They have seen an opportunity, and unless the industry has a way of saying no, or Spreaker says this is not what we want, then I don't know what we can do other than let the market decide, which is, will people continue to listen to this content, which is clearly evergreen as well.
Yes, I mean, so it's clearly evergreen. And if you listen to what Janine Wright says, she says, well, people are listening. We have hundreds of thousands of listeners every single week. And I think this...
But we know most of those are bots as well.
Well, and I think this is causality. Because actually, the there are tens of thousands of people listening every week. Quite a lot of those are going to be bots, but let's sort of ignore that bit and just look at the amount of human beings that have gone into this. They've listened to one episode. They've not subscribed. They've not continued downloading because, I mean, obviously by listening to some of them, you can understand why they wouldn't want to listen to any of that stuff. So at the end of the day, yes, they are getting listened to, but that doesn't say that people enjoy what they're listening to and people want to come back to what they're listening to. The vast majority, of course, there will be some people that like it, but the vast majority of people, you would assume, would listen to half a show and go, "Oh no, this is AI and this isn't right," and stop listening. But you can still count them as a listener. It's like that number that we talked about the other week of somebody who's watched less than a minute of a podcast on Netflix, still counting as a viewer there. So, you will get people claiming, these are being listened to, so let the markets decide. If you were to look at total downloads for Inception Point AI over a day, they're probably raking in quite a lot of money. But it's it's all a bit soulless, isn't it?
Well, are we being a bit snobby here, James? Right. So, for example,
yes. I mean, I think we are. Yeah.
Our friend John McDermott with Calaroga Shark Media does an AI voiced podcast, right? So, is it because of the amount of content that is being produced by Inception Point AI, as opposed to the output, which is an AI-generated voice?
Yeah, I think that is an absolutely fair thing to say. And the answer that I would give you back is the stuff that Calaroga Shark Media produces is good. It's produced with AI, yes, but there is a human being who sits there, listens to everything, crafts everything, edits everything, makes sure that everything sounds good, and then publishes it. Inception Point AI is just a tidal wave of shit. And because it's a tidal wave of shit that we've just heard, a tidal wave of shit where they're not even checking the output of the stuff that they've got. They've not even read the transcript, which Spreaker is doing for them automatically. They're not even reading that or putting that into AI to even check that. And that is, I think, the difference. It's the lack of care, the lack of, you've got a duty to care, a duty of care to your listeners, and it's the lack of that duty of care. It's that lack of really caring what you're doing. You are literally just shoving out shit and hoping that you get enough people to have a listen to the cheapest shit that you can possibly shovel out, because then you will make money. And that's all that Janine Wright is doing. That's all that Inception Point AI is doing. And to be fair, that's all that a lot of other companies are doing. It's just that Inception Point AI is clearly one of the biggest companies doing it, and is also really proud about what they're doing as well.
Well, they've got a business model. As you said, it generates a lot of money.
They do.
Why bother? Why would they care? Now, Dave Jones, we were talking about the new feeds report. Dave Jones, who is part of the podcast index, he wrote the podcast index, I think. He actually said something on Mastodon which was a little bit worrying. He said, "I'm in full-blown self-defense mode now with the index. The AI slopocalypse is real."
Yes.
I'm done with Inception Point AI. 238 new podcast feeds in 24 hours. He said, he also went on to say there's a new pod slop generator called Buddha.co. Yes. Almost 500 new feeds in the past 5 hours. So again, how should okay, let me try and ask you this question. Should the index now be blocking them at source? And I think your opinion is no, because you saw John Spurlock was taking them out of the OP3 report. Where do you stand now on this in terms of should we take them out of the index, leave them in the index? How do you think we deal with this?
Well, I think, and thankfully Dave also thinks the same way. So hooray, we have agreement here on this. I think that typical users of the podcast index, people like you use the podcast index to power the True Fans podcast directory, for example.
100%.
Yeah. And so typical podcast index users like you will be automatically protected from all of this, from anything which is suspected spam, gambling, or AI-generated stuff that's been confirmed AI-generated. You'll be totally protected about that because none of those will appear in your version of the podcast index, the version of the podcast index which is there on the API and everything else. And that is, I think, exactly as it should be. So it is censorship, but it's censorship in a way that I think makes sense for everyone. That word clearly worries some people, but let's be fair. It is an algorithm which is making a decision on whether or not that particular podcast should be listened to. So I think that is absolutely right. What I was concerned about is all of a sudden these shows disappearing forever for researchers that want to research. For example, how many shows from Inception Point AI are there actually? There are about 8,000 in the podcast index at the moment, but that's not including the ones that have been thrown out of the podcast index for being AI-generated slop. So you from a researcher's point of view, what we would really like to see, and I count myself as a researcher here, what we would really like to see is a copy of the podcast index data, which has all of the blocked shows in there, because that actually gives us enough understanding of what's actually going on here. And the good news is that Dave is actually keeping all of that stuff. He's not deleting things from the index, which is what I was worried that he was doing. Everything is still in the index. It's just marked as do not show because this is spam. And so what he's going to be doing in the next week or so is making another version of the downloadable index that you can get hold of, which is a version that has everything in it, including spam, for the researchers to be able to dive in and use. And I think that that's a very exciting thing. So I think he's doing exactly the right thing here. He's got an API where you can go and have a look at the scale of the problem. He's got a full database of everything which is in the index, including all of the spammy stuff. And then he's got the regular production stuff, which has all of that stuff taken out for people like you. And I think that that's absolutely perfect. So hurrah for him.
Indeed. And he will be on the show in a couple of weeks, actually. I've spoken to him.
Oh, excellent.
So, yes, we can have a more in-depth conversation. But yes, I'm so glad that Dave is taking it out at source. That saves a lot of hassle for me. I also implemented something that you told me to do, which is we only add new podcasts to the index in TrueFans based on user request. So if somebody searches, apart from obviously some new episodes we put in, but we can use this new API as well from Dave to go back and look and take out any of the other things that were marked as spam or things that we don't want to have in our local index.
Yeah, so exactly.
That's what we're in the process of doing right now.
I can see that being super useful and being able to actually check that. So, so there are 4.7 million podcasts in the podcast index right now. You can find all 4.7 million in search for the Pod News website. So if you try a search, then it will go through all 4.7 million of them. But we only have 1.2 million podcasts in our database right now. That's the only shows. And some of those, by the way, don't even show up in search because I've marked them as dead or invisible, or I'm not going to show these. So, so there's So I think that is a very good way of just sort of keeping the amount of the amount of hassle on your servers down. And by the way, obviously, if it's a show which has been marked as spam or AI or whatever it is, then obviously the podcast index isn't going to go and poll that RSS feed every hour or every day, checking if there are any new episodes, nor would we expect it to, because it's that really adds additional hassle and time onto the index. So I think all of it makes an awful lot of sense. Well worth taking a peek at both the new API that Dave has been working on, but also most importantly that 24-hour feed report, which is interesting. Just because, ironic, but they are spotting AI by using AI, and the 24-hour feed report page has actually been generated by AI coding as well. So no one here is anti-AI from that point of view. I think people are anti-specific things about AI and not as the concept of AI in total. So there's a thing.
James, Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts, yes. I just wanted to clear something up. Last week, we said that Apple Podcasts was earning 10% of all advertising through Apple Podcasts HLS video. That is absolutely not the case. I do know how much Apple Podcasts is going to earn from advertising, but but we can't say yet, and they won't confirm it to me anyway. But in terms of the way that Apple Podcasts are charging, it's not a percentage. It's just a cost per impression. So it's simple as that. Much, much cheaper, by the way, than 10%. My fault. I left it in. So apologies for that. Apple is not going to be that greedy. So there's a good thing. And to my personal spy at Apple, please don't pull my arms and legs off.
The Pod News Weekly Review will return in just a second.
I'm Matt Kundle, host of the Sound Off Podcast. I worked in radio for 25 years, and on the day of that 25th anniversary in 2014, I was restructured out of radio. And I thought to myself, wait a second, there's more audio being created than ever before. There's voiceover, podcasts, audiobooks, satellite radio, and I thought, what's going on here? I started this show which discussed all things audio related to broadcasting. And every week I come together with incredible talents and we get right to the nuts and bolts of all things audio. Each guest has a story about how they connect to people through sound. The show is not just for audio junkies. Yes, sometimes we talk about the good old days when we worked in a studio with carts.
It's a wonder that it even plays at all.
Vinyl, reel-to-reel machines, and later, CDs. You remember those, right? Things move fast in the digital landscape, and there's lots of moving parts behind the scenes. So when we get together with guests, we slow it down a bit, and I ask them to make sense of all these moving parts. For instance, did you know that weather forecasters can be entertainers?
Weather is the one thing that looks like it has a degree of performance to it, a degree of performance mixed with science, and weather was more infotainment. I've always used that word to this day.
And their job can be emotional at times.
Tornado coverage, it's less about actual stone cold hard ratings, more about public service and doing the right thing and being on the television and getting that information across and being the calm voice in the heart of a storm.
Did you know that podcasting is changing how we do business?
Your goal is to build a relationship. So one of the speakers that I saw talking about branded podcasts said, you're not building customers, you're building fans.
And while it sounds like podcasts are fun, they're a lot of work like any other job.
The amount of work that goes into a 30-minute episode, people don't realize, is incredible. So much work.
And people do it because they care.
On whatever station, whatever format it is, we have that opportunity to have that impact to one person or thousands.
There's 4 of us that work on this show, and we do it because you need a home to hear the details about why audio is evolving the way it is. So join me every week on the Sound Off Podcast, the show about broadcast and podcast. You know the people, Why not get to know them?
The Sound Off Podcast on your Apple, Spotify, or Amazon Music app, or go to soundoffpodcast.com.
The Pod News Weekly Review with Buzzsprout. Start podcasting, keep podcasting.
Netflix, they got into podcasting. Surprise, surprise. How are they doing now?
How are they doing? Well, we've got our first figures, which is exciting. They're not from Netflix. They're from a company called Samba TV, which is an independent measurement company. And they watch what you do on your smart TV, which is going to become important in a minute. But anyway, Samba TV says that in the first quarter, 13% of Netflix households in the US, that's 10 million households, by the way, watched at least one cumulative minute of a Netflix podcast in the first quarter of this year. So 10 million people watching Netflix podcasts is what the headline is kind of trying to be. That's a pretty good number, isn't it?
I haven't seen one yet, but by the way, I mean, maybe I'm just,
I don't believe that they're available outside of the US.
That may be the reason why. Okay. Do I think I'll watch them on Netflix? I'm not sure.
Well, there really is, once you go diving into the detail, there really is only one show on Netflix which is doing really well. It's a show called The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is a radio show that goes on air in New York every single morning. They video it. It's syndicated across American radio and all of that. And it is responsible, just The Breakfast Club alone, which is an iHeart show, is responsible for 40% of all podcast views on Netflix, which is massive. It's got 3 times the views of the number 2 podcast, which is a Netflix companion podcast for Bridgerton, which you would expect to have done quite well on the Netflix platform. So The Breakfast Club is doing incredibly well. And you could almost argue from that the rest are also ran and are hardly being watched at all in comparison to The Breakfast Club. Interestingly, half of Breakfast Club viewers are watching that show within 48 hours of the episode coming out. So they are using it as daytime TV. They're using it as a way to catch up for their friends that they listen to, perhaps on the radio, or wherever it might be. So that's really interesting, but that tells you a bit of a mixed message about Netflix podcasts. Firstly, it tells you that 10 million people are watching, and that's great, and that's very exciting. 10 million households, I should say, not people. So 10 million households are watching. But also, secondly, it tells you that there's probably only one big hit right now. And some of those other shows available on Netflix really aren't doing too well if you compare that with The Breakfast Club, which seems to be doing incredibly well. So some fascinating data coming out of that. Now, 2 things about caution. 13% of Netflix households is spanning 3 months, not 1. Mostly you would look for this data to be 1 month, not 3. So that's one thing. The second thing is it's smart TVs, not phones. So there will be consumption of Netflix podcasts on your phone, and this company won't actually get that. So the figure will be higher. And the third thing is one cumulative minute of a Netflix podcast means that if they have watched 10 seconds and gone, oh no, this is awful, and turned it off and done that 6 times, they still count as one cumulative minute. So a little bit different to how podcasting works. But even so, I think it's fascinating to see the dawn of a new consumption model for podcasts.
Why is that podcast again? Remind me. Not a TV show?
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's a cheap TV show, isn't it? You had to go there.
Well, Now, moving on then, let's start off with YouTube. How are they doing compared to Spotify and Apple, James?
Well, they appear to be doing very well, according to global data. So obviously every single country is different, and we're probably going to see a bit more of that as we take a look at more stats from across the world. But YouTube has pulled far ahead of Spotify, according to global data from a company called Media. Apple Podcasts is in 4th place behind Amazon Music, which is a phrase I never thought I would say.
Check that data.
So apparently 62% of monthly active podcast users are using YouTube. So this is users, this isn't consumption. So let's make that very clear. It's not downloads, it's not time spent, it's just users using a thing. 62% of monthly active podcast users are using YouTube compared to 47% for Spotify. And I worked out that the figure might be about 25% for Apple Podcasts. The graph that I saw didn't actually have a number on for them. The only surveyed countries where Spotify is ahead of YouTube are here in Australia, for some reason, and in Spotify's home country of Sweden for an obvious reason. But accepting that, YouTube far ahead. So yeah, YouTube seems to be doing very well. As I say, users using YouTube is different for podcasts, is different to time spent watching a podcast on these platforms. I still think that they are different, even though the Infinite Dial has told me last month that I'm wrong. So, but very clearly YouTube doing very well.
Let's whiz around the world then, James. What's going on in Canada? It seems that the Canadian Media Fund now supports video podcasts.
Yes, so the Canadian Media Fund is really interesting. So it is a fund for creators to get some money from the Canadian government. Obviously, you have a fair amount of US media in Canada, and so the Canadian government wants to do all that they can to make sure that they don't become a 51st state, and quite a lot of that is making sure that they have a lot of Canadian content. And so they have lots of laws around that, but they also have lots of funds as well. Canadian Media Fund is one of those. And in the past, they have looked at just video stuff, so YouTube, social media, that sort of thing. Now they are finally supporting podcasts, which is excellent, which is a great step forward. I know that folks in Canada have been trying to get that done for quite some time. You can apply to receive up to 40,000 Canadian dollars, that's about £2.50. To grow your audience base and to build your monetization opportunities. Yes, exactly. So all of that looking very cool and looking very exciting. So hurrah for Canada. Which is a good thing. You may also find in the Pod News newsletter this week a really fascinating piece from Anna Davudi, who has analysed the Iranian podcast market. Yes, they are having problems with the internet right now, but but quite a lot of Iranians have managed to get past that. And also, of course, they're having serious economic hurdles as well. But there are still more than 10.5 million podcast listeners in Iran, more than 9,000 Persian language podcasts. It's a really interesting article, which is well worth taking a peek at. And from one war-torn country to another in Ukraine, The Rest is Politics, Gullhanger's The Rest is Politics, managed to get Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for a full interview. Which is impressive, isn't it, Sam?
It is, and I think Zelensky's greatest skill is keeping the Ukraine war front and centre in media. I think all too easily it could have been one of those wars that was, like Somalia or whatever. That it's today's news, tomorrow's chip wrapper, right? And I think that's where Zelensky's skill is, in making people talk about it constantly, so that it doesn't disappear from the media horizon. Yeah, and he's been doing a fair amount of media recently, but very interesting that he sees The Rest is Politics as being a big enough show for him to be spending time on. You can hear that interview in the leading show that The Rest is Politics does. A couple of other things in Vietnam. Voice of Vietnam, which is the national radio broadcaster and the government-funded broadcaster, of course, communist government in Vietnam. The president of that company, Do Tien Sai, spoke at a workshop focused on podcasting and was very bullish about
about podcasting in Vietnam. There was a podcast seminar in this conference that he was at that had more than 500 people there. 498 people were from Vietnam, but they did have 2 international speakers, I noticed. Where was my invite? So in terms of podcasting reaching another place, certainly reaching Vietnam, I thought was interesting, and the Overlap, which is a media company owned by Gary Neville, but also part owned now by Global as well. They appear to be acquiring shows as well. So they've acquired a YouTube channel run by Mark Goldbridge, whoever he is. Who's Mark Goldbridge? Sam, you follow the sports ball, don't you?
Yeah, he's a bit of a contentious presenter. He's been on TalkSport as well. But he's managed to accumulate over 1.3 million followers on YouTube for his sports network. He's got 2 or 3 shows that he runs. And I think the commentary that I heard that was most interesting was from Gary Neville, that they see that there's a lot of big standalone audiences for football, but they're not networked. And what the Overlap wants to do is mop up this fragmented football market. It'll be interesting to see the winners and losers, because obviously there'll be some podcasts who lose out that don't get mopped up. But yeah, this is the first of many, I think, that Gary Neville's going to go for.
People News on the Pod News Weekly Review.
Yes, People News. And normally I swish through the People News because none of it's particularly interesting. So normally you go blah, 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 blah. But of course, I have to mention, you have an employee now, Sam. God help her.
Yeah, God help her. God help me.
Who have you signed up?
The wonderful Claire Waite-Brown, who I've been working with on and off for about 2 years. She did the podcasting 2.0 in practice, and then Claire and I have been doing Fan Zone and Creators. So she's joined in a new role for us as head of community. I'm really excited because our focus is on independent podcast creators, and Claire's got a really good reach out into that community as well. So lots of work that Claire's going to be doing, but very excited to bring her on board. So welcome, Claire.
Excellent. So Claire Waite-Brown is your Elsie Escobar.
Yes.
Other things going on in people and jobs include Michael Mignano. We know him as co-founder of Anchor. He is now known as a venture capitalist because he's got so much money he'd like to spend it. And he's joined Union Square Ventures as a general partner. So Michael Mignano, I'm over here. If you want to invest some money, that'd be a lovely thing.
I bet you he does. I'll take a bet he doesn't invest into one single podcast platform or app.
I'm sure that's absolutely the case. I'm sure that is.
He's looking at AI. That's all they have eyes for in the VC world. AI. Oh, can we spend another billion on AI?
Podcast events on the Pod News Weekly Review.
Yes, events, and let's take a look at those. There was the first Spotify Podcast Awards in France. Winners decided entirely by listeners. There is a way of you voting in the Spotify app, which is very clever of Spotify to end up doing. They're doing the same sort of thing in Latin America as well. They've done some book stuff as well this week. And they are beginning to sell physical books using bookshop.org, which is a website that I link to whenever I'm selling books on the Pod News website. Bookshop.org in the US, bookshop.org.uk in the UK. It's a bit more ethical way of buying your physical books than Amazon and Spotify jumping in with that. Maybe it's just a glorified affiliate deal. Who knows? But they seem to be doing relatively well in terms of that. And a big shout out for the Independent Podcast Awards 2026, open for entry. It's the 4th year of the awards, 1,400 entries. And if you want to save on your entry fee, then you can use the code PODNEWS10, which will enable you to do that. You've got You've got until early June to get your entries in. Maybe this is one that we could go for. Although we did go for that award a couple of years ago and we won nothing. So maybe I won't bother.
Yeah, no. The embarrassment is too much, James.
The embarrassment is exactly. It's just too much. Now let's move on to events, and the podcast show in London is happening in May which is next month. I will be there, assuming that Qantas doesn't cancel my flight. They've just announced that they're cancelling 5% of all flights, so who knows what might happen there. But I'm very much looking forward to being there, to talking about the Pod News report card, seeing how everybody is doing. podnews.net/report card. If you haven't filled that in, thank you very much. But they have announced Global and iHeart Podcasts as headline partners for the event next month. Bauer are also taking part, as are various other companies as well. Really looking forward to it. Are you looking forward to it as well, Sam?
Yeah, it's the favourite part of the year, really. Seeing all your friends, going to see different companies. The buzz is great. No, it's a really well done event. So well done to Jason and Fergus for doing that, and the whole of the team. We'll be doing a live show as usual, so come along and see us there. And
if we're lucky, it'll record.
Yes, well, let's hope. And I'll be doing a Futures of Podcasting event, seminar, whatever you want to call it. So if you want to come along and see me. So yes, and you'll be doing, I assume, one of your AI demos, won't you?
I won't be doing the AI demo this year.
No.
I was looking. So we had a advisors board meeting yesterday, and I was looking at the big list of speakers and everything else. It's always fun to find yourself or not apparently signed up. Well, apparently signed up to a panel talking about research. I will be the moderator. So I'm genuinely looking forward to that. I had no idea that I was doing it, but I'm genuinely looking forward to doing that. That should be fun. So yes, do come along. If you are a subscriber to the Pod News newsletter, then podnews.net/extras is where you can find yourself a code to save a bit of money on that.
Yeah, and also the last one, I think we'll be doing a podcast standards project area this year, not just a meetup. So there will be a place to go along and sit down and chat as well. So very exciting.
Well, there we are. That'll be in the top of the pub somewhere. That sounds very exciting. I hope it will be.
The tech stuff on the Pod News Weekly Review.
Yes, it's the stuff you'll find every Monday in the Pod News newsletter. Here's where Sam talks technology. What have you got, Sam?
There's a new podcast that's in beta. Anytime Podcast Player, Ben Hill said that the latest version will support embedded MP3 chapters alongside the current Podcasting 2.0 chapters. So you can check it out on the Google Play Store, or if you've got Apple Test Flight, you can try it out. So yes, congratulations, Ben.
Very nice. And talking about apps, Overcast has doubled its pricing. Wowzers! From $14 from $15 a year to $30 a year for new subscriptions. If you're an existing subscriber, don't worry, you'll stay at that earlier price for now. It's still pretty good value. It's still a pretty good power app. It's a very opinionated app, but if you like that opinion, then certainly worthwhile giving it a go. Overcast.fm is where to find out more about that.
Yeah, I guess someone had to pay for those 48 Mac Minis.
Yes, although apparently he bought them before the price started going ludicrously up, right. because of AI. So yes, I think he's done all right there.
Now, Libsyn, who seem to be transitioning into an advertising company more than a hosting company, they had a technical problem with people wanting to leave Libsyn because they couldn't get the 301 redirect to work. Seems they've fixed it, James.
Yes, they have, which is really good news. They've taken their time fixing it, but they did want to make sure that it was fixed properly. And it's good news that they have ended up doing that. It was about 4 or 5 months with that not working well. And, I don't want to turn around and say it was Pod News that did it, but certainly Pod News giving a little bit of oxygen to that issue can't have slowed it down being fixed. So I'm pleased that that's being fixed.
Now, Spotify, James, have added a new feature where you can turn off all videos, including those for music and podcast clips. What have they done?
Yeah, so if you go digging into your Spotify app, maybe you've already got this, maybe you'll have it relatively soon. You can turn off all video if you want. So you'll never see video again in Spotify, which is interesting for a company that was trumpeting how important video was, to be able to actually turn it all off. Now, I should probably say that is probably because there are people like me who have their family on their Spotify set up, and I'm not sure that I want my 13-year-old looking at some of the music videos on there. So being able to turn those off makes sense, and I can also turn off podcast stuff as well. But it's a bit more control. So that's good that Spotify is doing that. By the way, if you are a user of YouTube, you will be able to turn YouTube Shorts off completely with some new controls that they are doing as well. So I am rubbing my hands with glee and looking forward to the day that I can turn YouTube Shorts off, because they're annoying and I don't like the way that they repeat. So the sooner that they turn that on my account, the better. But yes, so hurrah for that.
I think Spotify, in the blog post they wrote, was saying it's not so much, that they're not still into video. It's giving users more controls, because they've given you controls over the algorithm for your taste profile. They've given you controls recently for other things. So I think, clearly they've got a drive right now to give more options to users to customize the UI. And I think that's a good thing. And I think more platforms need to look at giving users those controls so that the platform becomes more adapted to the user rather than the user having to adapt to the platform.
You are sounding very, very nice about Spotify. It's almost as if, just in the same way as I have a stalker from Apple, it's almost as if you've got a stalker from Spotify.
Have I? Oh, strangely, I think I have.
Well, if they're listening, please don't pull Sam's arms and legs off. That would be good. Now, Google is also doing something that nobody's asked for and nobody wants. What is it that they're doing?
It was just weird. I just thought in this tech section, it was just one of those left field things. They've added Google Meet to Apple CarPlay and they're rolling it out to the Android Auto as well. So now there's no excuse for you not being able to have a meeting on the go while driving. So there you go.
Boostergram, super comments, zaps, fan mail, and voicemail. Our favorite time of the week, it's the Pod News Weekly Review inbox.
Yeah, so many different ways to get in touch with us. Please leave us some voicemail. We would love that. We haven't had any voicemail this week. We would love a bit more of that. You can use the link you'll find right at the top of our show notes. You can also use boosts or email. We share all of the money that we make as well. Thank you to the total amount of sats that we have earned this week, which is up to 6,105. So thank you for that. That's nearly doubled, but not quite from last week. So that is excellent. Brian Ensminger always keeping up the top of the chart. Couple of boosts and things, both from the Ugly Quacking Duck this week. Which is nice. Good to hear the both of you for another week. We are definitely blessed to be able to listen to someone not sitting in our house. Don't want us to forget how amazing and blessed we have it. Thanks for the episode and the news. Have a great week. And he also says, A+, guys. Thanks for the episode. Thank you, Bruce. That's very kind of you. And thank you for using Podcast Guru and sending us a bunch of sats over. That's very kind. So have we got any messages in True Fans, Sam?
Weirdly, we have, yes. I sent you one, James, for 1,000 sats. This is for James Gridland to test the new Allen address and metadata comments. Does this appear in your Strike wallet? I think we had it, but then maybe it's broken again. Who knows?
Yes, maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's my code, or maybe it's not. So we'll soon find out, won't we?
The joys of programming.
Yeah, the joys of programming. Well, the joys of is your CTO using a bunch of AI yet?
No, we are AI free still.
You Luddites. Do you not understand what the future is?
Yes. Vibe debugging. No one's going to get that. Yes.
Seth Goldstein has sent us 1,386 sats. He says, I've been using Surf since it was in alpha. Oh, yes, we were talking about Surf last week as a kind of social network aggregator. It's come a long way, says Seth. It's essentially an RSS aggregator on steroids. It's already quite popular in the Fediverse with those who've been using it for the past year. I have a podcasting Surf feed that includes you guys and more of the podcasting peeps. Hooray! Yes, I haven't been able to play with it because it's only available for real phones, not for toy phones. So again, please don't pull my arms and legs off. And Neil Velio, interesting that HLS can be IAB certified. That was one of the first thoughts I had when I heard about it. Yeah, absolutely. So that is good. Talking about Brian Barletta and his interview last week. And also he liked it when I bleeped out the word f***. So I'm going to bleep out the word f*** again, just for him. And thank you to people like Neil, but also to Will Clark, to John Spurlock, to Seth Goldstein, and to Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting, who in one of the disclaimers that I have to write on Reddit, I said that Dave has never bought me a beer. There are plenty of good reasons why Dave has never bought me a beer, and one of those good reasons is he gives us $5 every single month so that we can go out and buy ourselves a beer. So Dave, thank you very much. Much appreciated to all of our power supporters. And if you would like to join them, weekly.podnews.net is where to go, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart. So what's happened for you then, Sam?
Well, we've been experimenting with video this week. We've put in a new video UI. So we've added a little video icon if there is a video in the alternative enclosure or video in the primary. And then what we'll do on the desktop, we'll play the video first as when you click play. But on the mobile, we'll play the audio first. So again, we're just trying to see how much video is now being produced, but also trying to make it more obvious to the user that there is a video option available.
That's nice. Yeah, video is always a good thing. So some people tell me. So yes, that's good.
We've also completed our full screen TV mode. So you've got an option now to go full screen on a large TV if you want with True Fans. So that's quite a nice little option that we've added. And in the user settings, of course, going back to what Spotify were doing earlier, which is why I was saying things like it's nice to have apps that actually allow users to customize the environment. You can also say, no, I don't want video to play first on the desktop, or no, I want video on the mobile to play first. So you can choose how you want those playbacks to appear. And then the last thing we're adding, which you'll see later today on the homepage, is the ability to change it by medium. So yes, you can have audio, video, but we have audio books and music. So you can say, only show me by this medium. So I only want to see videos, or I only want to see audio books. And I only want to see it in this date time, or I only want to see podcast episodes that are longer than 1 hour or shorter than 30 minutes. So again, we're just trying to give some more customization to users to allow them to set the app to work the way they want rather than the way that we think it should work for them.
Now, you've added a really interesting new feature called Co-Listen and Chat, which sounds very similar to Netflix and Chill. What is
Exactly.
what is Co-Listen and Chat?
So we came up with a feature probably about a year ago, where if you follow people on True Fans in a social model, you might see James is listening to Pod News Weekly Review, and it'll pop up a little notification, and I can say, oh, great. Well, I'm going to go and listen to that as well. The problem was you could join the exact same audio point that James is listening to. So I could say, right, I'm at 24 minutes as well, James. And we could have left comments for each other, but that's a really poor UI for doing that. So we've just literally added and pushed yesterday a chat client as well. So now you can say, yes, I'm listening with James, and now both of us will appear in the chat window as listening, and now we can start a conversation. This works with recorded podcasts as well as live. So yes, it'll work really well with some fans on True Fans who like to listen to this show, and now they can listen together. Or like I like to listen to the Friday night show with Adam and Dave, and you know, again, there's few people that I listen to that show with. Now we can all chat together while listening to the live show as well. So it
That's
works
very nice.
in both cases.
That's very nice. And I do wonder whether or not there is a way of saving that chat so that if there's public chat, which this isn't, I think, but if there's public chat, being able to then...
Oh, no, this is public.
Oh, it's public as well.
Private.
Yeah. Okay, so you could then, maybe as you're playing back a show, you can actually see what people were chatting about at the time, which I think that YouTube does. So, very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
Away from the excitement of true fans, have you been on any exciting podcasts?
Well, thank you to Norma Jean Belenky. I'm on Podbiz. That'll be coming out shortly. I'm going on to Ralph Estep Jr.'s breakfast show later today, which is very exciting. That's a live show. And the interview I did with Matt Cundall's just come out. Matt's got an amazing voice for radio, hasn't he? And I've got the husky voice in this one where my braces and teeth don't quite work together, but hey, what the heck. But thank you, Matt, for doing that. So that's out as well. So
not as husky as Brian Barletta was for our interview. That was a very different sounding Brian Barletta. I hope somebody has told him to shut up for a bit in the nicest possible way, so that his voice gets better.
Yeah, and I'll also be on the New Media show soon as well. So it's all happening. It's all good fun.
It is all good fun. By the way, you should check out the New Media show. I think this week or last week was all about local podcasting, and definitely worthwhile a listen. The chap who runs the CityCast network talking on that individual show. So well worth taking a peek on.
Well, this week's show has got Sharon Taylor on, and it was like a walk down memory lane with her and Rob, when he was at Spreaker, and they were talking about when she was at Omni, and they were talking about the good old days of low-cost CPMs. And so if you want to walk down memory lane of podcasting, join the two of them on the New Media show.
Yes, exactly. When I last saw Sharon, we were talking about doing a podcast together. Which I think she wanted to call Shazza and Crido, and I was not up for. So we'll see what happens. But doubtless hosted on Omni Studio. So
wow, there you go, build the empire.
Yes, why not?
So James, what's happened for you, mate?
Well, I've been doing it. So, firstly, I went to the gym today, and they've changed all of my exercises because I had a big test last week to see if I was still falling apart. And they've changed all of my exercises, and so now I'm absolutely shattered with, muscles that I didn't know I had now hurting. Yeah, exactly. So boo. Also, recently, I decided while my wife was away, I decided that I would do a little bit of washing. Of washing clothes, and I decided that I would look up how to wash jeans because I've got some new pairs of jeans that needed their first wash, and I thought, right, I've screwed up jeans before, giving them their first wash. I wonder how I should do this properly. So I actually went to have a look, and it turns out, right, apart from anything else, you're supposed to turn them inside out and then do all the buttons up and everything else, which I'm sure that you knew. But the other thing that
I was told,
Levi's,
yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that, so the other thing that Levi's tells you to do is it says don't wash them too often. We recommend only washing your jeans every 10th wear. Every 10th wear? Have they ever been to Queensland? Do they not know how hot and sweaty it gets here? I'm not washing them every 10th time. What a horrifying idea.
Yes.
So anyway, so that was one thing that was entertaining. Another thing which was entertaining is seeing, for some reason, my Mac is now telling me all of the apps that I'm running, which will stop working relatively shortly because they are using the Rosetta thing and not using the new Mac Silicon or whatever it is. One of those things is the Rodecaster Pro, the original Rodecaster Pro software that allows you to put new sounds onto the buttons. So when that stops working, that's going to be very annoying. So I'm hoping that all of that kind of stuff is fixed. But
I'm sure there'll be an update before then.
Yeah, you would kind of hope, although the Rodecaster Pro is a pretty old piece of equipment by now. So maybe they won't. Maybe I'll actually have to go and buy one instead of using the one that Alban Brook gave me. Anyway, we'll see how that works. Currently working on a couple of articles. One article which I've had some entertaining conversations with lawyers about, so that's fun. But also another article which is all about the history of the Zune when it comes to podcasting, and some pictures of Rob Greenlee looking very different to the way that Rob Greenlee looks now. I'm enjoying putting those together. The fun thing is asking in the Zune subreddit, would anybody be able to play my podcast on your Zune, please, and then send me a photograph? So I've got a couple of pictures of people listening to this very show on their Zune.
Wow.
Which is fairly amazing. And the final thing, just something, nothing to do with podcasting, but just something that I have caught myself doing. I don't know whether you've ever bought anything from AliExpress, Sam.
Nope. I've heard of it from you, but nope.
Yeah, so AliExpress, I mean, it sells some electronic stuff at ridiculously low prices. I just bought a little tag, one of those AirTag things, but instead of buying an Apple AirTag for $47 or whatever it is here in this country, I bought a cheap Chinese knockoff which works in exactly the same way, works with the app and everything else, and including shipping, I think it was $1.75.
Jeez,
and that's Australian dollars as well, including shipping. Wow. I have no idea how they do this. Anyway, but it turns out that AliExpress has, the app has some games in there. And the games in there, they're kind of, merge games, or there are a couple of other of these sorts of types of very standard games, and they're done okay. But as you do quite well in them, it gives you actual money that you can go and spend in the store. And I thought, this makes no sense. But of course, it makes perfect sense, because you're in that app every single day playing your game. Of course, it's giving you money. And so you're thinking, well, that's brilliant. But you're also seeing things that you might want to buy. So actually, it's a really, really clever, it's literal gamification.
Yes.
And it's really worthwhile taking a peek at, actually. It's really worthwhile playing around with that app and seeing the little tricks that it does. But and it shows, so I think I've got $12 to spend on stuff at the moment. Now, the clever thing with the AliExpress app is that you can't spend $12 on a thing. It gives you up to $12 discount on individual things that you are buying, but that discount might be 80 cents. It might be, $1.20. It's not going to be an awful lot. But nevertheless, you're kind of sucked in to continue to want to play these little games because you are literally getting money out of it. And I just thought that's really clever. And maybe there's an opportunity there for someone that is doing, a podcast app that, maybe earn money to pay for to pay creators or whatever it ends up being, of just putting a couple of little games in there. It's just another reason to open that app in the first place. But I just thought that's a really clever, crafty thing. But yes, I've got no idea how they how they afford anything.
Yes, poor persons, 24 hours a day working for nothing to give you a little AirTag, eh?
Well, I mean, I think quite a lot of it is paid for in some other way.
Right.
So now
they've got their spy in your house, yes.
Yeah, they are very keen to get me to install the widget. And if I install the widget, then they'll give me even more money, and I'm not installing the widget because that essentially means running their code every time I open my iPhone. And certainly if you were to do that on an Android phone, God knows how much stuff it would actually get. At least I can relatively guarantee, thanks to the iPhone, I can relatively guarantee that it won't have too much, nasty stuff going on. But Really interesting, though. Really, really interesting just to sort of take a peek at all of the little things that they are doing in that app. They give you money when you open the app. They give you more money when you're playing this game. They give you tokens that you can then change into game tokens, so you can continue playing the game and then continue earning more money, which you can't spend all at the same time. It's just genius. Whoever has done this is just genius. So it's a fascinating thing. Anyway. That's it for this week. All of our podcast stories, of course, taken from the Pod News daily newsletter. You can sign up. It's free at podnews.net.
You can support this show by streaming sats. You can give us feedback using the Buzzsprout thumbnail link, but better still, use the voicemail link. Where are you, everybody? You can send us a boost or become a power supporter like the 24 power supporters at weekly.podnews.net.
Our music is from TM Studios. Our voiceover is Sheila D. Our audio is recorded using Clean Feed. We edit with Hindenburg, and we're hosted and sponsored by Buzzsprout. Start podcasting. Keep podcasting.
Get updated every day. Subscribe to our newsletter at podnews.net. Tell your friends and grow the show.
And support us.
The Pod News Weekly Review will return next week. Keep listening.